So let's go back into our CSS, and now that we've got these unordered lists within our nav, so I can do something like nav unordered list and actually access these specific nav unordered lists. I'm going to get rid of the nav ID, so I'm going to do it slightly different than I did the header where I was using the ID to identify it. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to get rid of the list style type. So that is these little the circles or whatever we want to call those. We have the ability to change those into disks if we want. So whenever we save that, I think actually by default they were disks. So we can change these to be none. So that actually completely gets rid of them. We see there that now they're gone, and by default there's already built-in margins within these, so we see that it's already bumped out a little bit. So I'm going to set that to 0 and see what happens now whenever I save it. So also the padding, so padding is similar to margins, where padding is on the inside, margin is on the outside of the box, and whenever I remove out that padding, that was what was bringing those over into that kind of tabbed like look. And also maybe let's set a background color. So background color for our navigation bar, and let's make it red so it really stands out. And of course we're going to have to update that styling of the text as well. So now let's go into our nav UL list items, and we're going to update those. So we're going to float those to the left, and see what happens whenever we float them over to the left. We're bringing them immediately over to the left there, and they're floating right next to each other, so it floats it horizontally instead of the vertical default. And the one issue here is that I'm looking at is that, well, now it's still floating the rest of that stuff down there as well. So this isn't really ideal. So a better one to use is to update the display. So let's just see what the difference here is. So inline block, and save that. And I'm going to refresh that. So now we see that it actually is being presented a little bit more like it should be within a navigation bar. So that looks quite a bit better there. So let's update some more of the list item settings within our menu here. So maybe with the list items, we want to do something like we want to set a specific height for them. So let's just do 35 pixels. So that gives us some buffer to play with. We might also want to do the line height as well. So line height is slightly different than the height because this allows us to present a height of a particular font or a particular text that we're looking at. Maybe we also want to add in a border. So if I want to do a border on the bottom, so sometimes this is a really nice effect with when you're building out your navigation bar. So solid, and let's do something like a black color, so that this gives us a little bit more styling there underneath there. And this is just showing up under the list items, or we could just do a border around that whole. So you see that now we've got these individual list items available to us. And sometimes you might also see border right. So this adds those kind of borders on the right hand side as well. Let's jump into another line here and access our nav, and this time we're going to go for the hyperlinks. So I'm going to make it look a lot more presentable, because right now we do have all these items here in the navigation menu, but they're not really highlighting out. So let's do UL list item A for anchor text. And here is where we're going to remove out the default text decoration, which the default text decoration is underlined, so we're going to set that to none. Also going to update the display to be a block display, so that this will block out the elements a little bit better there. So display block. And maybe we want to also update the color of that font, because it doesn't really look that nice with the red color there. So just update that. And Maybe we also want to add in a little bit of padding as well. So I'm going to add in some padding up here. We'll see what this looks like over here. If I add in padding, so this represents them and brings them out a little bit better. So we can see here on the right hand side, so maybe we'll save that and refresh it. So now we've got our padding, we've got them broken apart. We can also specify specific widths as well. Another really neat feature is typically whenever you see a navigation bar, something happens whenever you hover over it. So there's these kind of actions. And these are, again, really easy to add in. So nav, ul, li, a hover. And this is, again, just that selection process. So maybe we want to change the background color whenever somebody is hovering over to it. So maybe we want to update it and change it to be black. So now whenever we hover over that entire block, maybe we want to remove out that anchor and hover on the entire block there. So that's also available as well. And we notice that it's not exactly going into the full width because of that padding. So maybe we got to move that padding around as well. So see what this looks like now and see if it's a little bit better, but it's still off slightly. So just remove that out entirely. And to show you that now we're selecting out that whole part there. So another thing that you might want to do within here, so I'm going to just bring that padding back into this one here. And I'm also going to update the text align because I want that text to be centered actually. So I'm going to text align it to the center. So it's going to look a little bit better there. And I'm also going to get rid of this border to the right because I don't think that we really need that. So save that again, and now we'll see what it looks like. So now we've got our menu items. And it looks more like a menu item. Whenever we hover over it, something is happening, it's changing, and it does look more like a navigation menu. So in the next lesson, we'll work more on the content and the footer to really build out and present our website. So that's all coming up in the next set of lessons.